So the dad joke is going to be related to biking, kind of. So we'll see if it's halfway funny. And
is it about unicycles? Is it?
Are you serious?
Is it really?
How do you know this?
I just kind of felt like unicycles.
You know, all right. Do you want to tell the joke?
I don't know the joke. I don't know the joke.
It does involve a unicycle.
All right, perfect. Go ahead.
All right. Well, stop me if you know this one. What's the difference between a well-dressed man on a unicycle and a poorly dressed man on a bicycle?
You know, Neil?
No.
I don't know. It's not going to be a good punchline. Just prepare yourself.
Okay.
A tire. So that was it. I saved that one all week.
Nice.
And I don't think it was as good as I was hoping. So.
Can you dig it?
Sorry.
That reminds me of eating popsicle sticks as a child.
Yes.
Popsicle, that's a total popsicle stick joke.
It is. We should start calling them popsicle stick jokes.
I forgot. I'm like, what's the reference? Oh, yeah. And the popsicle stick. Yeah. Bubblegum wrappers as well, right?
Yeah. Okay. You must be a local Tucson guy then. Actually, I know you're a local Tucson guy because I read your bio on Southwood Trails website. So I'm not going to pretend like I
Gotcha.
know.
Why? Because people that grew up in the desert eat popsicles.
Eat a lot of popsicles. Right?
Yeah,
Just 'cause it's so hot.
That's true. Yep.
Hey, so would you like to introduce yourself since we've already been talking for 8 minutes?
Sure. I'm Neil Stitzer. My current title is Trails Program Coordinator with Pima County Natural Resources, Parks and Recreation. Kind of speaking on behalf of my capacity with Pima County, and been involved with trail stuff over the years, kind of regionally. But that's me.
You guys have done some amazing things. As far as for the mountain biking community here in Tucson, at least from my perspective and my understanding of the trails that you built, they're awesome.
Yeah. And it's been really exciting to see, because I've been with the county for about little over 5 years now.
Okay.
And, I've, kind of been putting my resume together and getting some actual numbers and statistics. And when I came on with Pima County, the trails program essentially managed and maintained 75 miles. Okay. And 5 years later, just 5 years, we're now managing 150 miles.
Have you doubled in staff and budget as well?
No, and that's
a tricky part.
It's a challenge. Yeah. We're making it work, and we do that with volunteers. Okay. And there's no way we could operate without volunteers. We're almost 100% volunteer driven. But since I've been on with the county, we've added kind of in this area in Vail, we've added Mackenzie Ranch Trails Park.
Great trails. Did you guys do Hohokam as well?
We did Hohokam as well.
Okay.
All of that was actually machine built and hand finished. So the county owns a Sweco 480. It's a little 4-foot wide dozer, about 9,000 pounds with a 6-way blade up front. So that's kind of the rough cut, the initial machine that does most of the earth moving. And we now own a Mini-Excavator. It's a John Deere 17G, but it's a 4-foot wide machine that you can actually shrink down closer to 3 feet. It's got a blade up front, rubber tracks, a boom, an arm, and a bucket.
So a blade and a boom. Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
And
so you can move big rocks and things like that. And
you can. And we've got it's like an 18-inch wide bucket, and we've got a thumb on it. So you can actually like grab rocks and pick it up. But with that arm and bucket, you can do so much more. And that's the kind of the pass machine after the dozer to kind of clean everything up. And it's also a really great rehab machine if we're closing down, old roads or trails or anything like that.
So then do humans then follow behind the excavator to like do the final finishing touches and stuff like that?
Exactly, with hand tools, because no matter what you do, as clean as you try to be with a machine, you're going to end up with some sort of mess. So, and you can only reach so far with the machine. So if you need to drag off vegetation and stuff like that, you always need a hand crew to follow up and finish after them.
So so you have a machine that you said has 4 rotating blades on the front. That's the first one. What was the first one you said?
So it's 4 feet wide.
4 feet wide,
but it just has the main mechanism on it is a dozer blade up front, and it's a 6-way adjustable blade.
Okay.
So, you can kind of move dirt and push material where you want it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
So are these trails that you're working on creating and managing, Are they specific to mountain biking, or are they for public use, multi-use? Yeah.
Right. So pretty much every trail Pima County does is multi-use.
Okay.
And before I worked for Pima County, I worked for the town of Marana Parks and Recreation for 6 or 7 years. I jumped on the crew right as they finished the Wild Burro Trail in Tortolita Mountain Park.
Okay.
And they started on the Ridgeline Trail. So I started off as a crew member on the trail crew. Within a year or two, I was the trail crew leader for that crew that finished the Ridgeline Wild Burro Loop. And then,
so I have not ridden that yet.
No, I don't know anything about it.
And Mucker told me yesterday that it was his favorite trail in all of southern Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
what's the name of that one?
Ridgeline Wild Burro. It's like an 8-mile loop. Okay. Yeah. And I'm biased. It's, I call it the best trail ever.
Best trail ever.
Yeah, but it's good. I mean,
so maybe that day, so right before the 24-hour race, we're going to go up and pre-ride 24-hour race, and then we're going to go hit the chutes. Mm-hmm. Maybe instead of hitting the chutes in like Middlegate or 50 Year, we'll go check out. It's kind of up in that area, right?
It is. Yeah. It's like you can access it off the Honeybee stuff.
Okay.
There's a pretty gnarly climb up and over a Jeep road just to get into it.
Okay.
You can also access it from like the Ritz-Carlton resort on the other side.
Okay.
Come up Wild Burro Wash. There's a bit of hike a bike to get into it.
Okay.
But yeah, to circle back to your question, Mike. So a saying we would always have on the Marana Trail crew and the Tortolitas was, you build a good mountain bike trail, it's a good trail for all users. Because I feel like mountain bikers, they're almost kind of the most picky user group. You can't, they don't want steps and stairs. Even some hikers don't want them. They don't want super tight turns. So anything that works for mountain bikes also works for hikers, and we need to consider equestrians. And then I always throw trail runners in as kind of a fourth user group.
You are a trail runner yourself, right?
I am.
Right.
Yep. And hike and backpack for work and fun.
Yeah.
And then, so we built Mackenzie Ranch. We also added Enchanted Hills Trails Park. So I'll give some mileage numbers. Mackenzie Ranch is about 14 miles. Mm-hmm. Enchanted Hills Trails Park, which borders Tucson Mountain Park, is about 7 miles.
So is that the Enchanted Hill stuff? Is that kind of south of like what I would consider Tucson Mountain Park, kind of between Robles and Star Pass?
So it's
like Explorer Trail and that kind of stuff. Is that part of it?
It's near the east end of Explorer Trail.
Okay.
It's actually, I would say it's like on the eastern boundary of Tucson Mountain Park, but it's like due north of Robles Pass.
Okay.
North of Ajo Highway.
Oh, on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it connects, it ties directly into the Tucson Mountain Park trails.
So I don't know if you know, we've skipped over a couple things already. But do you know if you know? No, it's okay. It's part of this. This is all great.
It's a conversation.
It's true. So his nickname is Magellan. Okay, we have yet to hear yours. But anyways,
oh yeah, let's not ask him. Go.
But he it's a term of endearment, Magellan. But anyways, he does know trails very well, and he's taught me around here. Anyways, but these are trails that I've never heard of myself. Have you heard of half of these trails already?
Yeah. So Mucker told me, Mucker told me about Ridgeline, and then I went on Trail Forks and I was kind of investigating it and reading all the reviews, and I was like, why haven't I ridden this trail?
Yeah.
And then I've ridden all over in Robles and Star Pass, and between Robles and Star Pass, and like the 23rd Street or whatever right there, and
36th Street.
36th Street. Yep. Thank you. So I've ridden all those, but I don't know if I've ridden the Enchanted Hills.
So Enchanted Hills is like most of the trail system is directly north of 36th Street.
Okay.
So if you've parked at that trailhead and you haven't really gone into Star Pass, Tucson Mountain Park, but you've ridden some of the other trails, that's Enchanted Hills.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's some tougher trails, right? I mean, there's some blacks in there. Is that right?
Yeah, okay. There's some stuff. Some of that we machine built as well. And, there's only so many places you can take a machine without tipping it over. So we hand built a good chunk of that as well. And you always end up with a different trail between machine built and the hand built. You kind of got to make it wide and a little bit smoother with a machine, but with hand built, you can kind of, it's got a little more character.
Craft. Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, make it a little more narrow, take advantage of those rock features.
I feel like there's a lot to unpack in this whole conversation.
But
here.
let's get the nickname in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things we always do, Neil, is we like to establish whether or not our guests have a nickname. And I think Mark's the only guy that we let pass on that. I didn't ask him last week because I asked him if he had a nickname, and he was very adamant that he did not. So I didn't even go there.
Okay.
We didn't give you a chance, but. And I'll warn you, if you don't have one, you will by the time you probably leave here.
Okay.
Do you have a nickname?
I do. It was given to me by my friends. It's Cowboy.
Cowboy. Okay, what's the story behind it?
That's a good question for my friends. I think it's just like I guess I kind of have a history of kind of adventure and long distance cycling and I don't know. I guess they thought it was an appropriate nickname, so one of my buddies went with that.
You kind of have a cowboy build too, like you're bigger guy. You got the jeans on. You grew up in
he can pull off cowboy. He just needs some boots.
Totally
some
pull
boots
off
instead of the
cowboy.
dudes.
Right. Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
Right on.
So I went with it.
Okay.
Right on.
I like
cowboy.
It.
I like it.
He made me a top cap for my bike. It says Cowboy Neil at the wheel.
That's good.
That's awesome.
Cowboy Neil.
Yep.
That's perfect.
All right, so you're talking about the different trails. We ended at Enchanted Hills, and we're talking mileage, and we were getting, I think, to the 150, doubling the size of the mileage of trails in 5 years.
Right. So then we added Painted Hills Trails Park, which is out off of Anklam Road, about 4 miles of trail. It's more of a popular hiking spot.
Yep.
Dog walkers. There's some single track in there, and some people like it because they're like. We didn't take a whole lot of rock out. We didn't do a lot of sledgehammer work, so it's pretty rocky and technical.
Okay.
And did that, built the Big Wash Trail up in Oro Valley, which ties into the honeybee stuff.
So you guys took it to the
state land boundary.
Mark told us the story last. I can't remember if he told us the story on the podcast or not. So let's leave that one alone. Keep going.
And there's always something I forget. So Sweetwater Preserve and Robles Pass, those were some of the first trails parks. And then we didn't build it, but they were just kind of out in the ether. But the 40 miles of trail out on the west side of Tucson Mountain Park, so like west of Gates Pass, out towards Old Tucson, the Desert Museum.
Yeah.
Those, hadn't really been managed or maintained.
Yeah,
So
they were gnarly. So you guys are maintaining those now.
yeah, so there's 40 miles out there that are now, on our operation and maintenance plan, and we have signs out there and volunteer resources devoted to that.
Is there a name for that trail system out there?
It's just called TMP West.
Okay.
It's part of, we've kind of split up. Star Pass is TMP East, and then everything west of there is TMP West.
Okay. So like everything over that pass where you drop down Gate Pass, that would be TMP West, and everything on this side of Gates Pass would be TMP East, basically.
Right. And then just the new trails that we've built, primarily on the east side of Tucson Mountain Park, the Mockingbird / Max Shemwell Trail, Explorer, the easternmost extension, and then Portal, which ties into Enchanted Hills.
I mean, you guys, starting with like Robles and Sweetwater and then Mackenzie and everything that you just went through, you guys have completely changed the scene and the available trails in Tucson. For sure for mountain bikers, but multi-use. So, wow, like we all owe you guys a huge thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we've got listenership from basically around the world. And so
thank you. Try to keep it global. We're in 11 countries and 198 cities, but we always talk about Tucson. We love it so much.
Yeah,
here,
it's cool. Yeah. So, if a couple things, because when they come to visit, which they do,
come to
this
Tucson.
will help.
Hidden gem. Look at the last podcast we published.
and
Tucson is a hidden gem.
And it's a very bike friendly community, and it doesn't happen by accident. I mean, the weather is here, right? But you guys with trail maintenance and had a plan with that, right? But the other part of this is that might help some other folks is like, as far as like, we can talk about this down the road here, as far as getting into volunteering in their community and that kind of thing. But how much work goes into building trail from start to finish, the creating of it, the laying it out, and then the volunteer hours.
Yeah, maybe walk us through the process from like we got an idea through the plan, approval, funding, build, maintenance, that whole thing. Walk us through that.
Right. So I think the very first thing, and what I always tell people is like, you're in a natural resource park first and a trail system second. You can't have the trail system without the open space. And so the very first part of that is the planning and land acquisition. And so sometimes that's, a purchase that Pima County makes. Sometimes it's a land donation. Sometimes it's a land swap. Sometimes it's a combination of those things. So that the first step is planning, looking at maps, sitting in an office, drawing lines on maps, just kind of brainstorming. Once you've got the land, and, every situation with trails is a little bit different, but if you're able to start from scratch, say, Sweetwater is a pretty good example, where there are some roads on the property prior to trail development, but I got to give major kudos to Mark Flint on that, who was instrumental in the design of that. But, a well-planned trail system, you have the trail system that you built, and you have very little what we call kind of social trail development, where people will create their own trails for one reason or another.
That's the term that Mark taught me last week. So like the vortex out here that we ride, that's all social trails.
That's social. Is that equal to a pirate?
I guess.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Basically.
It's like a nice way of saying pirated trails.
Basically trails that are unauthorized by the land manager. Mm-hmm. And Honeybee is another example of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's out on state land as well. So
I don't want to cut you off, but at the same time, like when you start Google stalking you and researching for the podcast, your name pops up everywhere, and you realize when you're riding a trail how much goes into it, because you've got sustainability, you've got the safety, you've got ownership, like you mentioned, and that can change. And I would imagine you get a lot of feedback from the community and riders of what works, what doesn't, things like that. And then one of the things you were quoted is they said something, I think in September, an article, if someone wants to get somewhere, if they want a different experience than the existing trail system that it doesn't provide, they'll make their own trail. And you go into explaining why that's harmful to like you mentioned, the park itself, the space itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And so, I've explained it in the past as you kind of start with a point A to point B. And a lot of these old trails, they're like, oh, we'll just go a straight line. And if you're in hilly, steep terrain, that's not good for anybody. It's not sustainable. And it's also boring.
Right.
Nobody likes a straight line trail. So really the environment and the terrain dictates a lot of your final trail alignment. There's a lot of limiting factors with terrain. And then something that we have to go through our trail design process is making sure that we're not impacting any sensitive biological or cultural resources.
That's so crazy. So are you doing this like boots on the ground, or are you by a computer?
So the initial concept work it's almost like tracing topo lines, because anything that's perpendicular to a topo line is essentially the fall line. That's the way that water is going to follow, which you don't want. You don't want water running down your trail, because then you end up with a rut. So you want, you need to gain and lose elevation, but more or less your trail alignment is, on a contour. And so there's that. And then that's kind of the concept phase. And then, you get out on the ground, you wander through the desert with a GPS. And that's kind of a joke I've said in the past with trail design, is it's like trail design's awesome because you get paid whether a trail gets built or not. And you get paid to just like wander out in the desert in awesome places.
Yeah. So, as a kid, it's like professional baseball player, firefighter. And then you must have thought at one point, trail builder?
Yeah. I grew up in Tucson, kind of playing baseball, soccer, had to get out of Tucson for college. So I went up to Colorado Springs and just fell in love with the mountains up there and trails, and just kind of came to the realization, like, I want to do something with trails, because I don't want to live in a world without trails. And I don't think you guys do either.
In 3 years, he went to every peak over 14,000 feet in Colorado. Did I read that right?
It's true.
No way.
Yeah. That was one of my obsessions. My main obsession in college was knocking out all the 14ers in Colorado.
So I've done Mammoth and What's the one off of Imogene? That Jeep trail? No. In the San Juans?
Are you mean Massive?
Yeah, Massive. That was it. Yeah, Massive. Dude, he knows them all.
There you go.
I think I've done a couple.
Imogene Pass, you're thinking.
Yeah, and then one outside of Leadville.
Right. Okay. Massive is outside of Leadville.
That's
There's also Elbert.
Mount Elbert, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the San Juans are beautiful.
Yeah.
I've done some trail work in there over the last couple summers. So,
dude, that's amazing. How many 14ers are there?
I think 54 official, and then there's like a handful of other ones that, they have to rise 300 feet from the connecting saddle. So they're kind of unofficial, but I made sure to hit all of them.
Dude, that's you get out there.
Yeah.
That's okay. So one question, and then I'll take you back to the timeline of like how we get a trail built, starting with the acquisition of the land, which is I think where we do this a lot on this podcast. Where we cut you
bouncing
off.
around.
Yeah, we do that. All right. So, but here's my question: when you're riding a social trail, or you're walking, or hiking, or running a social trail, are you just cringing the whole time? Like, oh Jesus, why did they do this? Like, as far as the way that a trail's built.
It's hit and miss. Sometimes social trails are just heinous.
Yeah. And
that's part of the reason we just kind of, if we don't have the resources to do anything with them,
just leave them alone.
Yeah. Just kind of leave them alone. But, some are good, and there's kind of a rule, which, I think Mark Flint came up with, that a well-designed social trail it's almost like 80% good. Like, It's mostly good. They did a pretty good job, but there are those issues.
Okay, take us back to the timeline.
Yeah.
Okay, so you first and foremost, you got to have the land.
Right. Have the land. We kind of covered the concept phase, looking at maps, tracing, drawing lines on a map while you're sitting in a desk on a desk. And then boots on the ground, actually ground truthing it, getting out there with the GPS, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. And then usually,
are you testing soil and stuff at that time when you're out there boots on the ground to see kind of what you're dealing with?
No, it's all, it's a pretty kind of standard thing with soil in the desert. It's a lot of soft, sandy, decomposed stuff with not a lot of organic binding materials. So, we pretty much keep the same trail design standards throughout. Yeah.
Does that look familiar?
Exactly. That looks very
Wow,
familiar.
what is it? A handbook on
this is a book that Mark wrote or participated. Well, his name's on it. Designing and building trails in a harsh and demanding environment.
Is that something the public can get? If
it is, it's 100% public. And when we publish Mark's episode, we'll put a link to it, and we'll put a link to it in this one as well.
Very cool.
And so back to the biological and cultural clearances. Usually we do that concurrently with the ground truthing. It's much easier to actually go out with an archaeologist and biologist, and they can say, hey, you can't be here, reroute the trail. And so
do you have those guys on staff with the county, or do you have to subcontract those guys in?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's much easier to just do that on the ground. Everybody's on the same page instead of, exchanging 25 different emails with GIS files and all this other stuff and back and forth. So once we have the clearance.
Okay. So for just so I understand, what are you looking for when you said biologist and archaeologist both go out and the archaeologists are looking for cultural, like ruins and things like that. Like, what are they looking for?
Right. Basically, yeah. Old cultural sites, basically native peoples, ancestral sites. Okay. And that, typically if you come across some sort of stone structure, it's pretty obvious. Like, anybody, even me, who doesn't know what to look for can recognize that. Right. But it's the more nuanced things that you need, a lot of expertise and a lot of training to say, hey, that's that, and it might be pottery sherds in the ground, or it might be something, and like I said, I'm not an expert, so I can't even explain, but something so subtle that only they would know. That
the experts.
That's a sensitive
and then the biologists
area.
are looking for like endangered species and different habitats and things like that we make sure we don't want to disrupt.
Right. Yeah. So things like, sensitive species of birds that might be nesting, Enchanted Hills is a perfect example. We named one of the trails Tecolote, which is owl in Spanish, because there's a family of nesting great horned owls off the trail. And so we basically halted construction during the nesting period.
Oh, wow.
And, things like bird's nest, tortoise burrows, and then if there's any real sensitive, plant species, they document that. And there's certain things we pretty much steer completely clear of when we can, such as saguaros. We transplant a saguaro when it's absolutely unavoidable. But, larger saguaros, obviously we completely
leave
avoid.
Them alone or try. And that's part of the cool factor of the trail anyways.
Yeah. And that's kind of cool. Like you think, well, why did this trail go here where it did? It's like, because there's a saguaro right here.
Yeah.
How often are you running into artifacts and things like that from indigenous people?
Me, not too often. And there's usually not, like a lot of conflicts with cultural sites. Usually there's like 1 or 2 per trail, and they're pretty easy to avoid. Wow. And it's not something we want to advertise to the public. And it's even something that, our experts are a little weary of giving us the information.
Because people go out and harvest them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They want to kind of protect that, and they want to, we want to just keep the public away from that site, which is, part of
route the trails far away, so they're not inadvertently running into it.
Right, exactly.
So that's all part of the planning phase, and then and at some point you start breaking ground, I would imagine.
You got to get money, though, right?
Oh, the funding, yeah.
Yeah, the funding's an issue, certainly. But like I said, we're almost 100% volunteer driven. Currently, it's just me and one other part-time staff person, who's Evan Pilling, who was the former president / executive director of Sonora Desert Mountain Bicyclists. Right. You guys have probably heard the name.
Yep.
But yeah, basically, folks like myself or Evan will go out. We'll do what's called tight flagging. So we'll hang flags from trees, just kind of as a visual to see the line. And then we'll go in and we'll either go in with pin flags, or we'll go in with like white spray paint on the ground to basically mark exactly where the trail's going to go. And that's more or less, it's very helpful from a visual standpoint, but it's also, paramount when we get a volunteer crew out there. We say, hey, this is the line. This is what you're following. There's going to be a little leeway. Once you start removing vegetation, things look a little bit different. But yeah, you clear out the vegetation, open up the corridor, and then you basically start constructing the tread, which on, mellow side slopes, it can be as easy as just raking the ground. But, on real steep stuff, there's a lot of digging and a lot of dirt moving and
cutting into the
exactly. You're benching in, you're cutting into the hillside, and then more complex stuff. Whether it's drainages or just really steep side slopes, you need to build rock retaining structures and things like that to support the tread.
Mm-hmm. So when I'm out hiking or biking, I'll often see like a bunch of stones that were brought out. And it's like single track. And it's like, how did you guys get this out here? Or do you guys have like wheelbarrows? Do you have pack animals? Or is that tractor you mentioned? Or can the Jeeps fit on some, like most of those trails?
Like you're talking about transporting rock?
Yeah.
So we don't really import rock. It's all what we can find in the general area, which is usually, from one site, you're probably not going more than say 30 yards, any more than 30 yards, moving a big rock. It's
so
like
you use existing resources that you have in the area.
Right. Cool. Yeah. So it's a very, very kind of natural thing. We don't import concrete or, a lot of materials or anything like that. We basically use what's on site in the area.
Mark was talking last week when I had him on that he, one of the most important things when you're building a trail is to like not have it look like a trail was built. Oh. So like you don't want to line the trail with like a row of rocks. You want it to just look like there's a trail weaving through natural. And he says that a lot of the time that he spends or that you guys spend is in making the trail look natural after you've kind of cut it and finished the line. And so, and even like in this guide here I'm holding up, which is the trail guide, they talk about, when you turn over a rock, when you put it back, put it with the weathered side of the rock up so that it looks like it's always been there.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, broadcast the dirt, disperse all your vegetation and hide it. You don't want piles of dirt and piles of vegetation. You want everything outside of the trail corridor and the trail tread to look like it did when you started. So there's a lot of work that goes into the kind of the natural aesthetic.
That's it.
Aspect to it. But yeah, and it's the same with maintenance too. We don't want to leave a bunch of cuttings right next to the trail. You want to disperse them out, hide them.
Can you you've used these terms twice. I kind of understand from context, but I want to make sure our listeners understand. You said trail corridor and you said trail tread. Can you define those two things?
Yes, and I had that same thought. So the trail corridor is basically the corridor that you're passing through while you're using the trail. So the general rule of thumb with Pima County, with the Forest Service, is 6 feet wide. So if you're standing in the middle of the trail, that's 3 feet on your right, 3 feet on your left. That's your width. And so the height you're looking for is 8 feet.
That's to accommodate equestrian riders?
Correct.
I guess I got to get my terminology right because I screwed this up last week. It's equestrians. That's the right term?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good equestrian for him.
God.
That was
he did a popsicle joke right in the middle of the podcast.
Sorry about that. I can't help myself anymore.
Man.
Okay, so equestrian, we're talking the guidelines corridor. There we go. Back on track. Sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
8 feet tall.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's almost kind of borderline for equestrians. Some prefer 10 feet tall. So that's the corridor. That's basically the area that we remove vegetation more or less from. And it's, you think about that, it's a pretty significant corridor that you're clearing. You're like, well, I don't need that much room to use a trail. Well, it's a lot of preventative stuff because even without rain, stuff grows fast in the desert and especially the sharp, pokey stuff. So that's the trail corridor. The trail tread is the actual usable surface. So for the most part, we build single track trails. So when we construct them, they're basically 2 feet wide, maximum of 3 feet. Over time with use, even the machine built stuff out at Mackenzie, you'd never know it was machine built because now it's narrowed down to 18 inches to 2 feet wide. So
because the users go out there and find their line, and then that ends up kind of what remains cut.
Exactly, right. And that's kind of there's a number of terms, but that's kind of like your usable tread, your usable surface. And you'll actually see it right after you build a trail, and you'll say, you build it 3 feet wide. And if you have a volunteer crew that walks on it, you'll see that single track line beat in. So while you built it 3 feet wide, you'll see that 18-inch,
even from just the trail crew.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Just right in the middle. They'll compact that center of the trail, and you'll actually see that single track line, even if you build it a little bit wider.
Interesting.
So I've seen the I don't know, advertisements or call for volunteers on your on the website, things like that. So are you like in basically out there with the volunteers, kind of directing the construction of these trails?
Yeah, when we have an active new trail construction project, somebody like myself or Evan is out there, boots on the ground, to basically direct volunteers, quality control. It's pretty much a necessity. There are some projects, if we have more experienced volunteers, we can kind of let them loose. But hopefully I'm not digressing to another thing. I know we're bouncing back and forth.
You're
but
good, man. That's what we do in this podcast.
Okay,
You're
yeah.
we're all over the place.
Okay, well it's
totally fine.
I'll touch on our kind of, our volunteer program in general. We have what I call drop-in volunteers. And so that's, again, when a Pima County staff person or a more experienced volunteer is leading a crew. Drop-in volunteer might show up to one event a year, one event period, and then we never see them again. Or they might show up to, 10 or a dozen events every year for construction and maintenance. The other piece of it, and something I put more time into, especially this fall and winter, is our volunteer trail steward program. And our trail steward program is based loosely off the Arizona Trail Association's trail steward program. Yep. And it's basically, the idea is it's like an adopt a park, adopt a trail system idea. Mm-hmm. Certain volunteers are assigned to either a designated trail or a park. And what's been really cool within the past year or two is these single volunteers who like they literally multiply themselves by a dozen people. They're, granted they're retired, but they have all these friends.
They bring their buddies out.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, Robles Pass, I had one trail steward out there. Now I have like 15.
No kidding.
The west side of Tucson Mountain Park. And these are like RV communities, snowbirds, they're gone during the summer, come back October, November, stay until April or so.
Yep.
One volunteer, there's literally like 30. I have 30 trail stewards just for the west side of Tucson Mountain Park. And so that's our steward program. I set them up with training, tools, shirts. It's really like, it's cool to empower them, and they really get a sense of ownership. And Evan Pilling and I, we did a training this fall, a trail steward training where we got everybody together, just kind of got everybody on the same page, did a little more in-depth training as far as the tread component to it, because the vegetation, the corridor, like we talked about, that's pretty simple. Just about anybody can go out and do vegetation management. But when you're looking at the tread and drainage and erosion, it's a much more nuanced and complex thing, and you really need to know what you're looking for. So that's something we incorporated into that training, and something that we'd like to continue to devote more resources to, is kind of getting volunteers to look at the environment more, look at how water's interacting with the terrain and the trail, and I find myself like less and less like just telling volunteers what to do and not telling them why just to get work done, but making them think a bit more, and like trying to make them understand the why. And also, like, I've never had any formal trail training. So I've just kind of learned through working with other experienced folks and just
trial and error,
looking and learning.
Seeing what happened to the trail. You're like, oh, that didn't work. I guess we won't do that again.
Yeah, exactly. I was screwed up that time. So I feel like there's a lot that can be learned by just looking and, trial and error and all that. So,
yeah, I think that training piece, it probably goes a long way with that as well.
It does. Yeah.
How many volunteer hours would you say are out there? I don't know how you track it.
A year. What are you doing a year? How many volunteer hours a year?
So I've put it together probably in the last 5 years. I've estimated probably 12,000 plus total volunteer hours.
12,000 6-man years. Wow.
Yeah. That's so we're averaging about 2,000 volunteer hours, and honestly, I haven't been perfect at tracking all those, and those hours are primarily from the drop-in events like I talked about, but I'll get a better gauge after this season. But there's all these trail steward hours as well
that you're not tracking because folks are out there
but
on their own time,
but I will be tracking it this year. But
they have a mechanism for them to go in, and you should run a little contest. Like whoever gets the most hours gets whatever, some free bowling or something.
Yeah, make it competitive.
They can come on the Mountain Cog podcast. There you go.
Ooh,
bring some volunteers.
Please feel free.
Okay, yeah, I should.
So this community of Tucson, bike friendly, 150 miles now.
And 150 miles is just the Pima County trail systems,
right? So that's
not the social trails, not the national park, not the state land trust. Trust land.
Not the Arizona Trail, not the Forest Service.
Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah. And you said like you mentioned Evan, and then otherwise it's volunteers who maintain all that.
And do you partner with like SDMB and
cool.
Torque on these groups as well to like work with them to bring in their organizations to help?
Yeah. SDMB has been a primary partner over the years, certainly. Kind of had mixed luck with other trail user groups, but I think that's the great thing about our volunteer core is that we have literally every kind of trail user: mountain bikers, trail runners, hikers, equestrians, and some trail systems like Colossal Cave Mountain Park, for example. I kind of struggled with getting a volunteer trail steward group, but I found a group of equestrians, and they're now looking after that trail system.
So this is you guys as well?
Yeah, Colossal Cave Mountain Park.
Do you need more stewards up there?
I think we're set, but hey, I never turned down volunteers.
It's right. Okay. It's in my backyard. So
okay,
Josh would like to be a cowboy like you and wants to get a horse, so he wants to be part of the equestrian group. So I forget where I was. So I don't know. Are you still talking about trails, like how they're built and funding, or are we on the next topic yet?
I don't know what the next topic is.
Well, what I would like to know is some etiquette. You mentioned the horses, and I remember reading a quote on the Pima County, something about horses always have the right of way. Other than that, can you kind of walk us through like trail maintenance? Trail etiquette out there for all you like multi-use kind of groups.
Yeah, and so I'm sure most folks are familiar with the classic triangle, basically everybody yields to a horse, and then mountain bikers yield to everybody. Okay. There's no rule, there's no enforcement out there. What it really boils down to is everybody should get along, nobody should be rude or being exchanging profanities out there, which is like really unfortunate to see.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that, mountain bikers should be yielding to everybody, but at the very least, most of the time a hiker is going to realize, well, it's easier for me to just step off the trail. But, what kind of irks me is like, if you step off the trail and a mountain biker just blows by and says nothing, like at least a verbal thank you, at least an acknowledgement, if somebody's pulling off the trail for you. There's a gray area, technically, and it gets confusing because technically uphill traffic of the same user group. So if you have a mountain biker coming uphill and a mountain biker coming downhill, technically the mountain biker coming uphill has the right of way. Okay. So the mountain biker, going downhill should pull off, and yielding to somebody doesn't mean that you're riding off the trail, but staying on your bike just so that they can pass. It means that you're actually stopping, you're stepping off the trail. And that's another thing that kind of irks me is somebody rides off the trail, they're trying to be nice, they're letting you by, but at the same time, they're creating a mountain bike track in the desert. And it's, it's minimal impact, but it's like...
It adds up over time.
And you've kind of created a new mini trail.
So, Mike, forget your Strava times, okay? you got to stop.
My Strava times. Hey, what about passing people? I made the mistake of... because I was going too fast on a trail, which is usually not my MO because I'm not very fast. But I'm going and I didn't say on the right or on the left, and I thought there was enough space, and I really made the guy jump, and I felt very bad about it. And so it's like passing on the left. Is it verbal cues, or what's the proper way to do that?
Yeah. So if you're coming up behind somebody on a bike, announce yourself early. Ring your bell, make sure that they hear you and that they're aware of you, and don't come up on them fast. Give them time to kind of hear you, process the situation, slow down, use your brakes, allow them time to step off the trail. And again, the verbal thank you. Like I've been in the same boat. Like I've been coming up behind somebody fairly slowly, say, hey, coming behind you, and somebody totally freaks out because they've had that situation in the past where somebody's right behind them and they're scared. And so they expect that in the future.
Okay. All right. So slow down, announce yourself, verbal thank you.
Mark told us, for fear of like repeating myself on the podcast, because our listeners will have heard this previously, but it's probably worth saying again. Mark had said that horses are very accustomed to like the human voice.
Okay.
And so like, announce yourself with the human voice, and that really helps them.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, cowboy.
Yeah. especially with if you have a mountain biker, it's an unfamiliar object. They have a bike and a helmet. Yeah. So that verbal, voice will kind of help the horse recognize that it's an actual person and not a monster, whatever horses get freaked out by.
Yeah, exactly. Now that makes sense. Okay, so I think we left off on the trail development part about the funding, and then is there anything else we need to talk about, like funding or that kind of with you mentioned volunteers, so maybe it's not an issue. But what about other communities in that? Is that generally, do you know if that's an issue with that kind of thing, or any thoughts for that?
Yeah, I feel like it is. I mean, funding for a like a professional paid trail crew, certainly always helps. And whether that's like their standalone resource for trail construction and maintenance, that's great. But I feel like it's a good supplement to, the volunteer aspect of it too. Okay. And quite honestly, you, at some point, volunteers are awesome, but you hit a ceiling with volunteers, especially if it's really complex work.
Okay.
And so, paid crews really come in handy with more complex projects. I feel like nationwide funding for just recreation in general and trails is lacking.
Sure.
And that's why, I've said in the past, like, trails don't happen without the community and they don't happen without volunteers. I mean, you look at trails nationwide and a lot of them are volunteer driven. Some jurisdictions are pretty effective at finding funding and they'll have, a designated crew. But again, even a paid crew can only get so much done. So I feel like it's a combination of both.
Mark was saying last week, just a number that just blew my mind. And I think he was doing something maybe in the Arizona Trail out here, but he was saying that their objective for a day's work was 1/8 of a mile to 1/4 of a mile. And he had, 50 people or something like that.
Wow.
So put that in,
times,
put that together.
Yeah.
For new trail.
For new trail.
1/8 to 1/4 mile. 50 people for 8 hours.
Wow. That's a slow work to do it right, I guess.
Yeah. It's a very slow process, and kind of to put it in context with like a paid trail crew. And granted, there were two to three of us most of the time, up to 5 of us sometimes, but it probably took us 4 years it basically took us a year per mile for when we were building the Ridgeline Trail.
A year per mile.
Yeah, with a paid crew.
Wow. Okay, so for our listeners,
dude, that's nuts.
Yeah.
That's so like, yeah. I mean, you're yeah.
So
mountain bikers, please.
Yeah, going back to what ChatGPT
said, right?
For trails,
even though it was a little repetitive, right?
Yeah, and that's what Neil mentioned. The reason you got into this is to have what was it, trails for the future, and that was your whole goal, which is awesome. So for the rest of the our listeners and that, if they wanted to start, like, they're like, hey, we need to do better at maintaining trails, we need to do better at creating trails in our communities. Like, what are some best practices? What are some things you've learned? It's like, don't do it this way, or how does it work best in communities that might not be as fortunate like we have having you at the helm here with Pima County?
Just as far as people wanting to see more trails developed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I think there's a couple different options. Getting involved with the trail advocacy group, okay, such as TORCA or SDMB, or there's other groups. Pima Trails Association is also a partner with Pima County. There's hiking clubs. But basically, the public voice is a powerful thing.
Okay.
And, just basically getting that message across to, whether it's elected officials or land managers, but, everybody has an opinion, everybody has a public voice. And, it's one thing if one person comes in and says it, but, it's much more effective if you get a group, if you have a trail advocacy organization that says, hey, we're speaking on behalf of, say, however many thousand people,
right?
We think this is important and why.
Yeah, that makes sense. Trail advocacy group. So
organize, go to your local bike shop.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to know who the local groups are, and get involved.
Yeah. And, also feel free to, get in touch directly with the land manager as well, whether it's, Pima County locally or the Forest Service. I know, and part of the something we didn't touch on with the whole trail process is the public comment period. You know, we always open up trail projects and trail development to public comment. The Santa Catalina Ranger District, for example, they're putting together a pretty comprehensive, holistic plan for like a long-term plan for the Santa Catalinas and the trails, and especially just kind of having to rethink things and the trail system up there in terms of usability and sustainability. And also after the Bighorn fire, you know, they did a pretty extensive public scoping project. And, you know, I will say that they really kind of bent over backwards for mountain bikers to really improve the trails up there for mountain bikers and, you know, offer some more kind of cross-country stuff as opposed to just kind of shuttle downhill stuff.
Very cool.
That's super cool.
What's the future look like then for?
Yeah, where's the next 25? Where's the next 25 miles that the Pima County is going to develop?
Yeah, that's a good question that I don't necessarily have an answer for. You know, there's been a great effort in the past, like my predecessors at Pima County, just on the planning end and the land acquisition. And we've done, you know, as we've touched on a whole lot in the last 5 years.
Amazing.
But I feel like with our current resources, we've really kind of hit a ceiling
From a maintenance perspective.
Yeah,
like
from
this
a-
is all we can maintain.
Yeah, from a maintenance perspective. And it's honestly, it's been, you know, new trails are great, but it's been nice to not have any new trail projects for the last year or so, because we were developing all these new trails, adopting all these new trails, but we weren't necessarily maintaining and improving what we already had.
So you got to shore up like the stuff that we have and make sure that it's solid.
Yeah. So kind of, you know, our focus has shifted towards maintenance. I foresee that focus shift kind of continuing for the next, you know, few years. There's, you know, Tucson Mountain Park is kind of a touchy issue, just because, you know, in something from a land manager perspective and something with a trail development component to it is like a trail is kind of a sacrificial corridor and it's a land management tool. Like there's one side of the spectrum that says we want this land for conservation and a wildlife preserve and we don't want humans on it at all. The other side says we want recreation and only that and trails everywhere, but we have to find a balance to it. And so Tucson Mountain Park, for example, is we're kind of hitting that level of like an oversaturation of trails. Like we can add a little bit more maybe on the fringes, but there's only so much land out there. And we also do have to keep in mind, you know, that it is a natural open space. Yeah. So there are, with that said, it won't be super near term, but there are some additional connections I'd like to see in Tucson Mountain Park. I do kind of have something in the Tortolitas on my radar as well to kind of improve the existing system out there. But, I kind of see the focus moving forward is not so much like new kind of far-flung stuff that doesn't necessarily connect to other things. That shift in focus being like,
connectors.
let's look at what we have, let's improve what we have, and let's connect what we already have to, you know, improve what we have as much as we can.
Yeah, and we have a badass set of trails right now.
Right. And there's, and there's always room for more, but yeah, like I said, like, you know, kind of that first piece of everything is just having the land to do it on and just also realizing the conservation aspect of it. But yeah, it's a balance.
Man, I have learned like so much today.
I know it's so cool.
It's amazing how much I've learned. Hey, so is there any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners? Any final message you'd like to leave our listeners with? Guidance, wisdom.
No
pressure.
Yeah,
cowboy.
It's pretty open ended. Yeah, you know, I really don't. I would just say, you know, think about what trails mean to you. Think about, you know, the benefits that you reap from trails. Think about maybe what would your life be without trails? Yeah. And you know,
I would not be in Tucson.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, just consider that it doesn't happen without the community. And, you know, volunteering isn't for everybody. And, you know, so you don't have to volunteer, but you can certainly make a financial contribution, whether it's to a local nonprofit organization, trail advocacy group.
Right.
Or you can also make a donation directly to Pima County.
Can you really? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
So you have to make sure we got the right links and stuff like that, so we can put all those things in the show notes here.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, it's been so nice talking with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity.
We appreciate you, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you sometime in the future.
Awesome.
Thanks, Cowboy.
Cheers. So I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago when this company OpenEye, released this tool called ChatGPT.
Yep.
And I'm going to sit here and sound like I kind of know what I'm talking about, but I really have no idea. But it's a artificial intelligence text-based tool or algorithm that they trained, and they trained it with information up through 2021. So it doesn't know anything the last year.
Oh, wow.
So unfortunately it doesn't know anything about Mountain Cog, but because we're newer than 2021. But I thought it would be interesting if we asked ChatGPT a question, or asked them to write kind of an intro script for us, and then Mike and I could read it. And so I'll start by kind of telling you what the question we asked, and then Mike and I will just jump into the script and understand that after we tell you the question, the script was written by this artificial intelligence engine, and it was written in about 3 seconds.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The robots are coming.
They're coming. So the question was, write a script on why all mountain bikers should donate both their time and their money to mountain bike trail development, maintenance, and advocacy. And that script should have 2 hosts, Josh and Mike. So we're going to go ahead and read the script, and it starts with me. Welcome to our show, where we're talking about the importance of supporting mountain bike trail development, maintenance, and advocacy.
That's right, Josh. As mountain bikers, we all know how much we rely on trails for our sport. We all have that special trail that we always go back to, that we love, that we cherish. But did you know that without support, many of these trails may not exist or may not be properly maintained? It's not only about the trails themselves, but also about the whole experience that comes with it. The sense of adventure, the sense of freedom, the sense of connection with nature. And if we don't take the necessary steps to support trail development, maintenance, and advocacy, we risk losing all of that.
Exactly. That's why it's crucial that we all do our part by donating both our time and our money to these causes. Not only does it help ensure that we have great trails to ride on, but it also helps to protect and preserve the natural environment. We should all care about this because we are the ones who benefit from it, but also we are the ones who can make a difference. We can make sure that these trails stay open and available for us and for the next generation of mountain bikers. And we should also make sure that the experience that comes with it is preserved. That sense of adventure, the sense of freedom, and the sense of connection with nature.
And there's so many ways to get involved. You can join a local trail advocacy group and help out with trail building and maintenance projects. These projects are not only about building and maintaining trails, but also about creating a sense of community, a sense of belonging. You can learn new skills, meet new people, and make a difference in your local community. You can also make a donation to organizations that work to protect and preserve our natural spaces. These organizations are doing an amazing job, and they are the ones who are protecting our trails for us and for the next generations. They need our support, and we should give it to them. Every dollar counts, and every volunteer hour counts. These organizations rely on the support of the community to keep the trails open and maintained.
And even something as simple as buying a trail pass or paying a fee to ride on certain trails can make a big difference. These funds go towards trail maintenance and development, so it's a way for us to give back while still enjoying the sport we love. Every dollar, every volunteer hour count. Every time we pay for a trail pass or contribute to a trail fee, we are supporting the trails that we love and are making sure that they stay open for us and for the next generations. This is a small but important step that we can take to make sure that the trails that we love are there for us and for the next generations. And it's not only about the immediate impact, but also about the long-term impact. When we support trails, we are not only supporting the trails we love, but also supporting the future of the sport.
And don't forget, not only is it a great way to give back to the community, but it also helps to ensure that mountain biking can continue to grow and thrive. As mountain bikers, we are a community. We should take care of our trails and make sure that they are there for us and for the next generations. We should support trail development, maintenance, and advocacy, not only for ourselves, but also for the next generation of mountain bikers. Our support will not only help the trails to stay open and maintained, but also to promote the sport and scene.
And scene, that's it. So what do you think, man? What do you think? Does that make you a little uncomfortable that a machine wrote all that in 3 seconds?
It definitely does. Yeah, especially in 3 seconds. Because how long did that take you guys to just read that?
It took us 5 minutes to read it.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little repetitive, but it was scary. Like all the important points that it hit on.
Yeah, the repetitive part. I was kind of like, did I read this?
I said that again. I said that. I got sucked into the Chat GPT rabbit hole the other night and just went deep into it. A half a bottle of whiskey and a lot of Chat GPT and a bunch of YouTube videos. And what they said was, on average, they think it's about as smart as a college student that is an average student at a state university. And they're using the SAT score that it can achieve as the metric to kind of compare to like the average student at a state university. And it's only like, 4 weeks old.
That is nuts. Right. Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Right.
I'm pretty sure my job is gone.
I'm getting a little worried over here too.
I don't know if robots can build trails yet, but so I think you may be safer than Josh and me. But
yeah, maybe just my public speaking career. But you're right. I do feel like I'm pretty safe. I do feel like trails are they're safe from AI for now.
For now,
anyways. Yeah, you need a human on the ground.